Hey everyone, thanks for watching. My name is Mike Campbell, the creator of the DruML MIDI triggering system, and in this video, we're going to be doing an overview of the DruML ecosystem itself, how to hook up devices, and then we're going to take our flagship product, the S1 digital snare, hook it up to a computer, and then get it playing notes for the first time. So let's get started. So what we're looking at here is the back of a DruML S1 snare, and as you could see, there are 3 ports. The first port being USB Type B. This is what's used to power the device. It enumerates as a class-compliant MIDI interface. It's how you do configuration and firmware updates, and the vast majority of people will get by perfectly fine with this port. But for compatibility reasons, say you wanted to trigger your old school Yamaha samples on your keyboard, you could use a standard MIDI to MIDI cable. As long as the device has power, you could hook it up to anything that's capable of receiving a MIDI. And they could be used at the same time, not necessarily even hooked up to the same device, and you do not need USB data. So if you wanted to, for example, you could take a USB battery bank, power the drum, and then have this hooked up to your old school Yamaha keyboard, and then you can make laser beam sounds all you want. So right here is the TRS jack. So we added this for backwards compatibility. This hooks up directly and passively to the center and rim piezo sensors. So this lets you use the DruML unit as if it were a standard conventional eDrum trigger with 2 zones. It doesn't play half bad. And if you were in a pinch or just practicing, or you're not ready to upgrade or not using a VST, this gives you a way to use the drum. The caveat here being that eDrum modules typically these days are not passive. Charge amplifiers put a small amount of current into the piezo itself, so you never want to have 2 active devices hooked up at the same time. So when you are using the analog pass-through, please make sure you're using it by itself. Otherwise, it's probably not going to work really well. But to get started, the first thing we got to do here is hook up the DruML unit over USB. So let's open up DruML Studio and then plug in USB. So here we are in DruML Studio, just plugging it in. It should show up in just a second. There we go. Now here's the welcome screen, and it's going to walk us through setting the drum up. Now we're getting asked to update, so let's get to the latest version. One really cool thing about DruML is that everything is done end-to-end over MIDI, including firmware updates. So you don't need drivers. It could be done in the browser or on your phone. And we also have an agent that you could use for controlling your drum entirely. Anything you see in this UI, you could do it via chat as well. In the top right, you could also see the build number. This is how you know what version you're running on. And now that we're updating, we would expect this build number to go up once the device is done being restarted. It looks like it's finishing up right now. The device is going to restart, and here we go. Calibration is the way that DruML is able to have extremely tight playing dynamics and accurate positional sensing without requiring the user to configure anything. And we do this by using machine learning to generate a hardware fingerprint that captures the unique acoustic characteristics of your device to make better predictions on everything else going downstream. So depending on what software you use, you would pick a preset, or you could select the notes individually below. And then we're going to go on to set the volume. So if you want the edge or center to be louder, or if you want to change the way that the curve ramps, you could do that all here. And you don't necessarily have to dial it in at this point. You could always go back to it later, but let's just move on. DruML supports positional sensing, both as off-center being its own note above a threshold, and then also a continuous value from 0 to 127, where 0 is the center and 127 is the edge. The purpose of the positional gain setting is to make sure you get access to the entire playing surface. So you should be able to hit 127 when playing at the very edges, but if you hit it too easily, you're losing out on useful range. The DruML S1 contains a capacitive electrode under the mesh head that's capable of detecting the presence of a hand. We use this for things like cross-stick detection, but it could also be mapped directly to MIDI notes or a CC command if you wanted to control a knob or a fader or something in an external system. It'll be able to do that too. The purpose of this UI is to be able to calibrate the dynamic range and make sure that you're able to find a good balance of sensitivity and latch time without really running the risk of getting false positives or latching when you don't want it to. All right, so we're pretty much good to go now. The drum's ready to play. So let's take a look at some of the features in DruML Studio, and then we'll wrap this video up. So the live monitor area, it's pretty self-explanatory. As you can see, it's a real-time interface for being able to see all the signals coming in from the drum. It's going to show sysx commands as well as MIDI notes. And the main purpose of this is really just for troubleshooting and visually it looks kind of cool, but you can see how the drum works and if it's sending what you think it's sending. So as you can see, a lot of these settings probably look familiar. We just went through a lot of them as part of onboarding, but you could go back anytime you want and find them in these menus and change them. You get access to all the same things, but there's also a whole bunch of other settings that aren't in the onboarding that if you're an advanced MIDI nerd, you're probably going to think are cool. Right here, you could see gesture controls. You could actually map a MIDI note to a gesture. And as you can see, we're able to actually trigger the drum. And in the advanced MIDI setting area, you're able to set hand side values, and you're also able to map the touch sensor to a continuous value. And here you're going to see sensors and calibration where you could change the gains of the amplifiers if you ever want to. And then here you're able to go back and rerun any of the wizards that we just went through. You could run them one at a time if you just want to do a specific task, or you could just run the main onboarding wizard again, and that's the experience that we just went through. But other than that, we've pretty much covered most of DruML Studio and what it could do. Like and subscribe. Thanks for watching.